Well, we just had a conversation with Yossi Sargent, and that dude, I could have gone for 3 more hours. We have to have him back because
He's the best. He's so
there's
good.
so much to be said about culture. And to your point, we were talking off camera. It's so multifaceted, right? It's like we are in an era where there isn't an easy answer to how to interact with culture. It's not entirely the Democratic Party's fault, but the party has made mistakes. We also have just sort of abandoned the work of building culture in a way that connects the dots between activism and culture. It has become so hyper commercialized.
Yes.
Artists who are more political or activist have a very difficult time even bubbling up to the point where they make cash. We also have the massive platforms. So it's such a complicated and nuanced conversation, but I think at the end of the day, it's so important that we figure it out and at least attempt to. And we got into that with Yossi, and so interested.
I love Yossi so much. I guess and this is a great segue for us because I think we wanted to do a year-end list of some of our favorite cultural figures and some of our favorite cultural moments of 2024. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, I guess my sort of takeaway from that conversation is I don't know that it's as simple as if only there was more funding to do culture work and there were people that could have, done a little bit more culture work. I think there's like a bigger, sort of what I was describing with the Democratic Party and people not holding accountable the almost billions of dollars, literally billions of dollars that's put into all of these nonprofits that should have been doing really great work as well. I think we also need to hold accountable, which we're going to do in our top cultural figures of 2024, culture itself, because I think the media has been pilloried rightfully as the media does not know how to cover Donald Trump, right? Donald Trump has put a blowtorch to journalists, people trusting media, people trusting news. Donald Trump coined fake news, and he sort of, the idea that that the New York Times editorial board is going to be the last bastion of defense against Donald Trump. Like, no one thinks that that's the case anymore. And I think we sort of saw that happen with culture as well. I think that this idea that our quote unquote culture was going to sort of protect America from itself, going to protect America from Donald Trump, protect, this idea of what it means to be a pluralist, right? A country where women have the right to choose, a country where, we don't scapegoat entire religions or entire races, that there was something in the water in America that was going to prevent that from happening. I think what we saw was, again, Donald Trump just blew through all of that shit,
Right. I mean, but to me, culture isn't something that, and we talked a lot about this with the conversation with Yossi, culture isn't this thing that happens on its own. It is the product. Culture is the kind of accumulation and compilation of thousands of things, millions of people and things and their ideas and the things that they build. Like, culture is a dynamic entity.
Yeah.
And we build it and it changes and it reacts to and responds to and takes on the personalities and endowed with the values of the people who interact with it and intentionally make things for public consumption.
Sure.
And so you can't just think, like, if we are unhappy with the results, or if we are unhappy with a facet of culture, of American culture, if we say American culture allowed for the election of Donald Trump, did not protect us from electing him, then it's incumbent on people who make culture to shift that culture.
Yes.
Right? And I think that why it comes back so often to blaming the Democratic Party is that I don't consider advocacy groups' responsibility to shift culture. But I do conceive of the Democratic Party as a culture maker.
Interesting.
And maybe wrongly. Maybe I shouldn't. Maybe
they
I
certainly
should.
haven't.
They certainly have not. That's not part
they
of their
certainly
self-concept.
did not take that responsibility.
Right? But I very much think that if culture makers are not a constituency that you are thinking about and actively engaging with and thinking about how you can support and be in relationship and in communication with, then you are abdicating a massive responsibility
Agreed.
to elect Democrats.
Such a great point.
If you're not taking culture seriously, then you're also not taking the work of making sure that the conditions are appropriate to elect the candidates that wear your label. You're not taking that seriously either. And that's my beef, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like you sure blame culture, but like that you have to blame it's you have to go further than that. Like that you can't like culture isn't a person, place, or thing. It's not a noun, right? But the people who make it are.
For sure.
And so who are they? And then what is your request of them? And how would you ask them to be different or participate differently or create differently?
No, and by the way, I'm not blaming culture. I'm not blaming the media or blaming culture.
Sure.
What I am saying, though, is like we think of these things as guardrails, right? Or...
Yeah, we have this like weird passive relationship to it, and
100%.
It has to be active. Like
has to be active.
You have to you get in. It's like everything else in life. Like you get out of it what you put into it.
Yes,
and it's like you don't.
It's like a muscle.
It really is.
Yeah,
you know.
And speaking of, so Twig and I thought that it's the year end. Time Magazine just announced their Man of the Year, which is Donald Trump.
Excuse me, Person of the Year.
Oh,
who happens to be a man.
Excuse me, Person of the Year.
What a throwback, Brad. Man of the Year.
I also name-checked the Redskins on our last pod. I don't know what's happening.
Did you really? I missed that.
I really did. I don't know what's happening.
Well, wait, are they? But are they going back?
No, I just incorrectly called them the Redskins. I don't know.
Somebody told me they're going back. They're
No,
bringing the logo back.
They're bringing the logo back.
And that's true.
Well, possibly.
Okay. Well, that'll be great.
Possibly. But what we're going to do on Twig and Jenkins, welcome to Twig and Jenkins, by the way. Welcome. We're here. We're 1 million streams deep and we're here.
Thank you, Spotify listeners. It's so wild.
You guys. We love you. 1 million streams deep.
Are we ever going to be on Apple?
I don't know. I mean, we could. You
Is
keep texting about it.
I know, and you don't answer. So now that I have you pinned down.
No, it's just an extra thing that we have to do. So, I mean,
okay, all right.
We
Copy
could
that.
do it. It's just, it's another thing we have to do. We thought we would do our People of the Year, our 2024 people, but maybe beyond just people, maybe moments, maybe memes. I think we have to start, if we're starting with Donald Trump, who's clearly the Person of the Year. There's no other way to put it.
Yeah.
I think probably a 1B for Donald Trump is his whole manosphere that we've been discussing. So you got to put Rogan.
Yeah.
You got to put Logan Paul.
Yeah.
You got to put
they nailed it.
Aiden Ross. You got to put that whole ecosystem.
Milk Boys, yeah.
Shapiro, Charlie Kirk, Candace Owens.
They nailed it. It's so infuriating.
There's no other, we just talked about the OC, but there's no other more powerful cultural force. And when we speak of what you were just describing, which is active.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is an active cultural force.
Yeah.
To which we had no response to.
Oh, it's so true.
We just didn't. But I don't even know if there's more to say about it. I mean, I think the views are ridiculous. The engagement is ridiculous. The vast majority of people that watch that content are younger. Is there anything else that we could probably add to that whole ecosystem?
That glowing review of these guys? No, I mean, they nailed it. It's a real bummer.
1A and 1B. For number 2, and then I'll let you pick a number 3.
Okay.
I think we got to say Taylor Swift, because I think that culturally, commercially, there's no bigger figure in America.
What's our criteria, by the way?
No, I'm going to explain.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
And she put it on the line, right? This is someone who made, I don't know, $2 billion. She's a worldwide phenomenon with the Eras Tour and etc. But she also simultaneously not only endorsed Kamala Harris, she had fun with it, with the cat, whole cat lady, whole childless cat lady. She put her own mark and a call to her fans, people who love her music. She got, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of people registered to vote. But if we're talking about someone, you know, again, she probably could have done more. Not going to lie. She probably could have gone a little bit deeper with the endorsement. But there were a lot of people, in my humble opinion, that are at that level who were just completely silent. So I'd put Taylor Swift number 2. What are your thoughts?
I mean, I hate to enter into the Taylor Swift, Beyonce.
Let's go. Is Beyonce your number 3?
Well, it has. If you're going to pick Taylor Swift, then I have to represent not only for my demo.
God bless.
Not only for my race.
God bless.
But also for someone who has taste in music. No disrespect.
Shots fired.
I mean, it's fine. She's got some bangers. It's fine. But like, Beyonce's so interesting. Like, as an artist, she's so interesting. She, from a political context, you know, we talked about it at the time, but it was actually it was a fascinating thing to hear her speech.
She did speak.
Like, she gave, she showed up. She didn't just perform. She actually gave a speech that offered a really compelling frame. Obviously, there were also great. She probably saved abortion access in Texas, like that. The amount probably brought Colin Allred into striking distance in the U.S. Senate, and so again, competing in places where we don't traditionally compete.
Sure.
We saw the results of that, and then Cowboy Carter was amazing.
Yeah.
Like, I love that album. I think it's so great. I think
Very
it's so
slept on.
interesting.
Did not really.
Commercially, no, but I think people who, one of the things that I love about that album, and I think it goes to what you were talking about Dr. Dre earlier, and him saying that there hasn't been a good rap album in 10 years, which is like such a crotchety old man thing to say, but also fine.
I'm here for it.
But Beyonce and Cowboy Carter and Renaissance too, you had to work for those albums.
Sure.
Like, they get better and better the more you listen to them, and that her rejection of creating music that is so common denominator, instantly legible hits that
Agreed.
but like, to listen to things and to like really have to check references and figure out samples and go deep on, and then you realize how brilliant they are after you've listened to it and done some research, like something you can earn. I love culture that you can earn.
Yes.
And so that you have to work for, you know, and I think we're missing that. There's Amazon has created this world where it's like you can reasonably expect that the thing you want arrive at your doorstep in a few hours, like dating sites or dating apps. It's like there's thousands of people to choose from. I don't have to work for something anymore.
Yes.
And the work is where the fun is.
That's
and like
the fun
work,
part.
like it's actually where it gets really delicious. And so like that album is so good. And I didn't listen to Midnight Poet Society, so maybe it's really good.
It's fine. It wasn't her greatest work. I think I'm grading Taylor on, I think, just her impact as an individual person. The album itself is okay. I don't think it's her like best work.
Sure.
But you bring up a good point. I mean, the Spotification, the sort of singleification of our music these days, where, you know, back in Carrie and I's day, the only way for us to listen to music was to literally go buy an album.
Yeah.
Bring it home.
Well, what's it called? LimeWire.
Mm-hmm.
All that shit was starting when we were in high
Napster.
school. Napster. All that was starting when I was in high school.
But
right?
we
I used
remember-
to crash my computer illegally downloading music. all
Oh,
the
yeah.
time.
But we also, even then, we were downloading illegal music. But it was the beginning of all of this, because as fans of culture and fans of music, we're definitely going to go buy the Tribe album the day it comes out.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But we're going
and
to
like read the booklet.
exactly.
And do
We're
all
going
the
to read
things.
the liner
yeah.
notes. We're going to figure out who produced what song, what features there were. We're going to do it all. Who wrote what song?
Yeah.
We're definitely going to do that. But we were definitely going to just download for free the Lil Jon song.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? We're not going to go buy the Lil Jon record.
Yeah.
But we're going to download it because we're going to play it on our computers when like friends come over. And I think that that's the way that music has evolved now, to your point, where people just don't make albums anymore, right? Like people just put out singles, or I mean, they do create albums, but
yeah. And there's some amazing, I mean, they just don't get bubbled up in the same way, right? Like there's so much, the algorithms are doing so much of the labor for you.
Yeah.
And that's cool in some ways, but it's also, again, like just things are just better when you've earned them a little bit, when you've had to work for them, and when there's a sense of discovery. And so like even on SoundCloud, there's so many amazing artists out there that are doing great stuff, but you know, they have to play the game of trying to like enter the flow of the algorithm. And there's just fewer ways for them to sort of get, I don't know. I mean, I think there's just less sort of like bragging rights, I guess, about like being in the know on stuff, because everyone sort of has a lot of the same information. But anyone who puts me on new music, I'm just like, oh, I'm obsessed with you.
It's like the greatest love language.
It's such sharing, a way to my heart.
Is sharing music.
Books, putting me onto a book, putting me onto new music, really
new
spectacular.
Movies as well. I know we're on a music trajectory here, but my number 4 is Charlie XCX, just because of obvious Brat Summer. It's not just Charlie, her music, but I think that we talked a little bit about it with Yossi. There was a moment, y'all, where we thought that the Coconut Tree and Brat Summer and Kamala was going to be something special, and that there was going to be some momentum. And then it just, I don't know, your thoughts. I don't know if you're a Charlie XCX fan. I don't know if you were tapped into the Brat Summer culture, but I feel like you got to put it, maybe not number 4, maybe I'm grading it a little high, but at least for Twigg and Jenkins.
Obviously, we've gone into this completely unprepared, so I've done zero
for Twigg and
research.
Twigg and Jenkins and like what we were talking about, I feel like it's got to be up there, like the top 5, right?
Yeah, I'd been paying attention to sort of the brat culture starting in the spring, probably. I think is when it was really kicking off, largely because I started wearing a lot of lime green, fully independently, and then was getting feedback from people randomly in LA of like very brat, and was just like, come again? Who is that? But yeah, I mean, I'm into that. I think that it was interesting. It was interesting how that dovetailed and made that just offered the like cool factor to politics. It was such a contrast, right?
Yes.
From like the Biden era to the Kamala era, and the way that she dovetailed into sort of popular culture in a way that he just couldn't, you know.
And they try to embrace it. I mean, again, we've been...
I think they asked her. Is this a rumor? Is this public knowledge that they asked her to perform or endorse, and she said no, just because it's like she's a Brit?
She already did it.
She was just sort of like...
I mean, I don't blame her. She did the right thing.
Yeah.
She already did it. I mean, she said Kamala's brat, which is, I believe, the like most liked tweet of like the year.
Oh, interesting.
The Kamala campaign then changed their Twitter page to the Brat logo.
Really?
It was Kamala HQ with the lime green with the font.
Okay.
I mean, the thing is, like the Kamala campaign, as much as we are throwing shit at the Democratic Party, like they tried.
They really did.
They did. They embraced culture as much as they could.
No notes. No notes.
As much as they could, but clearly it wasn't enough. So yeah, I think we got to throw Charlie up there. We should go in other directions here. You were a Hollywood person.
Give me some athletes.
I mean, Caitlin Clark for me.
Oh.
Caitlin Clark for me.
Are you pissed off about that?
I mean, Caitlin Clark we may need to even put Caitlin Clark higher up on the top 10 list.
Yeah.
In my humble opinion. I think she was just named athlete
of the year.
Of the year.
Did you have thoughts?
It's 100% correct.
Yeah.
It's 100% correct. For someone who is a sports fan, I think I'm like literally a sports fan that does a political podcast on the side. Like I'm a sports fan.
Yeah.
And what Caitlin Clark has done for women's sports is you can't even compare it to any modern day athlete, what she's done. And for anyone, and I know, look, there's a lot of racial components to this. There just is. There's a lot of resentment and a lot of rancor among current WNBA stars, WNBA owners, WNBA coaches. The WNBA was a fledgling organization that lost money year after year. The arenas were empty. The ratings were non-existent. And their stars, on average, are making what school teachers make, like public school teachers make, right? Like it was not a successful endeavor. Now,
in contrast to what was happening in the NBA, in contrast to like what is happening in other sports.
In contrast to, I would say just in contrast to the culture as we're describing the culture, right? Like it was not, people were not watching it. People were not engaging with it. And it was barely surviving.
Well, okay. I want to come to the defense of the WNBA.
By the way, this is all, I'm saying this with, these are just facts. This is not like,
yes and no, though, right?
This is not like, what am I trying to say here? This is not like saying, like it was wildly successful and there was really great interest and people were going and watching.
But there was an era where that was true. So like actually one of the things that doesn't get talked about, which leads to the rancor of a Caitlin Clark, which leads to the frustration, is that the WNBA was actually cresting and like having a moment of real crescendo in the 90s.
True.
And then a bunch of the athletes came out as gay, as lesbians, and there was a massive backlash.
Sure.
And so there was also this era of just like, those are queer and lesbian women, like, and we're not going to support them in the same way of like the early 90s heyday, sort of really deep homophobia that was existent in the culture. And then you saw them really fall off, right? But as someone who is a devoted New York Liberty fan, like they have been building back, and other franchises around the country have been like literally keeping the recruitment, keeping players, or going around Europe. Like they're working hard to keep the league viable.
Yeah.
And so then as they're charting this course back over the course of the last 6, 7, 8 years, recruiting new owners to come in and bring and give them the infrastructure that they need, the support for the athletes to be able to be world-class players. Like that work has been done by, in most cases, women of color, Black women, these queer women, people who have continued to believe even when they don't have the spotlight of the kind of broader media or broader public interest, right? So even if you were going to a New York Liberty game when I was still living in New York 5, 6 years ago, when they came back to Barclays, when the new owner brought them back to Barclays, like it was lit. It was so fun. Those games are so fun. And that was years ago, even before they'd sort of broken through. And so people get pissed off because Caitlin Clark, who is extraordinarily talented, comes and she sort of fits the familiar neural track that we already know, the kind of star that media likes. And so they basically credit her with saving the franchise and saving the WNBA. But when people have been out here grinding and investing millions of dollars into these athletes and into the space over the course of the last 15 years, trying to bring it back from this like very homophobic backlash of the 90s, and to then have all of that be credited to a kid who wasn't even born when some of the people were making investments that are coming to bear today is really frustrating.
I understand that it's frustrating.
How did I just mansplain to you?
No, yes, beautiful. I loved it. I mean, and I don't disagree with anything that you said, but also like, yeah, okay, it's very frustrating, but also you should be so excited for this moment in women's sports.
Oh, totally.
You know, that's the
I'm
thing.
So
that's the thing that I get so frustrated by, because it's there. And I also will say this about Caitlin Clark: she's been fucking great.
She's great.
She's been so perfect when speaking about everything that you just described.
She is. She's on it. That picture was sick. I put it on my stories. I got a lot of feedback.
Her admiration and her defense of Black women and Black lesbians and everyone that came before her.
No, she's on it.
She's been fucking phenomenal. And yet she continues to catch strays every single day from people who are trying to claim that she's not good when, let's just be clear, she's the greatest college basketball player in American history. Yeah. She comes in with that. You can't take that away from her.
Yeah.
And she's fundamentally changed the sport. I mean, I took Sadie to go see her play. They played at Capital One. Yeah, man. Sold out. Yeah. Right? And so I'm so excited for Caitlin Clark. And I think what I would just say, it's like this is where we like trip over ourselves when something great like this happens, because God bless the internet, because we have to somehow, it's always a binary choice. Mm-hmm. You know? Mm-hmm. Either you love Caitlin Clark or you hate Caitlin Clark.
Yeah.
If you love the WNBA, the most exciting thing in the world should be Caitlin Clark.
And a lot of her fellow players are saying that, right?
100%. Yeah. I mean, unfortunately, some owners, in my opinion, really dumb owners are not embracing it. Like, this is a moment where, like, this is exciting. Like, there's a moment where, look, WNBA players should be paid more. Caitlin Clark is now offering that opportunity for teams to make some money. You know what I mean? So God bless Caitlin Clark. I'd put her in the top 5 as well.
And these athletes are also figuring out the ways to leverage, whether it's like still in college, name and likeness rights, whether it's like Angel Reese's podcast is hilarious so interesting.
So good.
And they're building out, themselves and as an enterprise, as like public figures in ways that are really smart and like will help all of that.
It's such a great point too, because it's an entry point, right? So what you have here, think about how many young girls play sports. There hasn't been, unfortunately, because of everything that you're just describing, which is true, racism, misogyny, homophobia, all these things have existed in our media. I mean, the NBA itself, like, we forget that, the NBA is now going through a downturn as well. The ratings are the lowest it's ever been. It's ironic that the games where Caitlin Clark played compared to the actual NBA, she was kicking the NBA's ass.
Yeah.
Because there are... The world is just changing. Like, the world is excited. I think that there are not just young girls that want to watch Caitlin Clark play. I want to watch Caitlin Clark play.
Yeah.
And so what we are finding is the NBA had these, to your point, swells, peaks, and valleys. There was a moment right around the same time that you're describing with the WNBA that the NBA was going through the same thing, where they're saying the NBA was too Black. They installed a dress code. Do you remember that shit?
No.
There was a dress code. This is the heyday of AI. And it was also, around the time where...
Oh, right. I remember it with AI, but I don't... Yeah. Right. And he kept getting fined.
He didn't care. He was going to keep wearing what he wanted to wear. But it was around the time, it was like Clinton era, Sister Soldier era.
Oh, my God. The Black respectability politics.
Black respectability. Bill Cosby.
Oh, my God. Oh, my God. Out
Bill
here,
Cosby era.
Mass sexual assaulting people and then condemning Black people for... wearing baggy pants.
That was a whole thing.
Oh my God, it was a whole thing.
It was
Tipper Gore being a total nut bar.
People were saying that the NBA needed to clean up and ratings were dipping. Yeah. Advertisers were pulling out. Right? Like, all sports go through these evolutions. And, we obviously, that was an era. That was also an era where it was like the end of the Jordan era. And there was kind of this mishmash of like, what is the NBA now?
Without him.
It took a couple of years, and what happened? Kobe and Shaq happened.
Right.
There was a whole new era that happened.
Right.
So that's what's happening with the WNBA.
Yeah.
Like, Caitlin Clark is bringing so many people. So, yeah, your gateway drug is Caitlin Clark, but you're going to find out about Angel Reese. You're going to go to a game. You're like, this is so fucking dope. And you're going to be exposed to all of these other players and all of these other teams. And so that's my thing, is like, for people... and people who I love and people who, are on media and former players. Like I think Cheryl Swoops was getting into it with Caitlin Clark. All my favorite players are like getting into it against Caitlin Clark. I'm like, as much as I love and respect.
That's trauma, man. That's trauma.
I love Swoops. She's
Swoops
incredible.
got dogged so hard, though. So that's just a trauma response.
It is.
Like,
I mean, these are women who got paid nothing.
Nothing.
No, I mean, she also did get an endorsement deal, though, because remember the Air Swoops back in the day? Like, she had, I think, a Nike
But they
deal.
had to fight. I mean, they had to wrestle that shit to the ground.
Of course.
You know, they were just disrespected.
They paid their dues.
Yeah, 100%.
They paid their dues. And it's exciting. I'm very excited for the WNBA.
I cannot wait for the series. We should go to a game.
We gotta go to a game. Our boy Josiah, who owns the New York Liberty with his wife Clara, like, it's an exciting moment for women's sports. You got to put Caitlin Clark in the top 10. You're right. As you might expect, we did not do any prep for this, so we're off the dome.
Go figure, winging it.
Biggest cultural figures of the year. Who do you got, Twig? Who else do you have?
Oh man, I've been engaged in this conversation. I haven't been simultaneously brainstorming. We're gonna miss so
many people. Well, wait. Let's talk about the time, because the other people they nominated were interesting.
Okay. All right. Great. Yeah. Let's just draft off their work.
Draft off their list. So the other nominees that lost, these were like the second place winners. Kamala Harris, obviously.
Sure.
Kate Middleton.
They really have to do that with her. First of all, absolutely no royals.
Royals.
No.
Agreed.
Fuck the British royal family. Are you kidding me? Sorry, Mom.
God bless you, Carrie Twigg. And yes, agreed. I didn't even understand why she's a nominee.
No. I think she's recovering from cancer. I hope that's going well.
Yeah.
But
is that the reason why she was?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, give me, the British royal family. So absolutely not. So, my family in Barbados was a British colony. My family was enslaved in Barbados. We're owned by the crown, right? So I was in London, and one of my aunties, Linda, she and I were walking around, and it was one of those days that they opened Buckingham Palace to the public for tours. And I like that kind of, like, I love going to the White House. I love going to Congress. I love going to state houses. Like, I'm such a nerd for that kind of thing. History major. What do you want from me? And we decided to go through, and we're walking through. My auntie Linda, we were like looking at Buckingham Palace, and it's like these gold ballrooms and stuff. And she's like, and imagine building all of this with money from selling children. And it's just like, I'm not trying to hear a word about the British royal family until they have a meaningful discussion about reparations. Like, I'm not interested.
God bless. Clip that. Royals are not on the list.
No, spare me.
Spare us.
Absolutely not. Okay, so that took a turn.
Did take a turn. Who else was on the list? I believe notoriously Benjamin Netanyahu was on the list.
Ooh. Controversial.
Because sometimes these Time People of the Year are not.
It's not about being a good person.
No.
It's about being a notable person who's shaping the world. Okay. Who else?
He's not. BB's not on our list. That's for sure. That might have been it. I think those were the runner-ups.
No Zelensky.
I think he might have won like a couple of years ago.
Oh, so he got
it.
Good luck.
He's out. What was striking? No Joe Biden. Poor Joe was not like a runner-up.
Man,
which is a tough beat.
Insult to injury.
It's a tough beat for Joe.
Did any honorable mentions for
there were no
Stewart?
There are no film and TV stars. Who now?
Jon Stewart.
Nope. No comedians.
So this is a great idea.
Oh, Taylor Swift.
Us drafting off of time
great.
now that we've completely reached
great idea. Taylor Swift was,
dead end.
I believe, a nominee. We already just named Taylor Swift.
This is a terrible idea.
This is a great
idea. We're gonna have to cut this whole thing.
No, this is a great idea.
No, okay. All right. Who else? Talk to me about some of the internet people you follow. You're deep in the internet. Like, is Mr. Beast interesting anymore?
No,
I've never seen any of his stuff.
No, I mean, we already put Rogan on this list.
Sure.
I would put Hassan Piker maybe on this list.
Okay.
I think he makes it. I think if you're putting the Manosphere on the list, I think Hassan is the only version of that we've got on the left. Have you ever consumed a minute of Hassan Piker content?
Yeah, I have.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yeah, he's hot. So obviously I support him.
Very good looking guy. Very tall.
We saw him at the convention.
We did see him. I didn't have a conversation with him at all though, but he was there.
Yeah. No, I'm happy to watch Hassan anytime.
I think if I was an editor at the time, I think you probably put Kendrick Lamar on the list.
Oh, absolutely. Have you listened to the new album, by the way?
So good.
Obviously, it's so good.
So good. But just
love Kendrick.
The Drake beef, just that whole prolonged
amazingness. That was so
song
delicious.
after song after song.
Devastating.
Obviously performing at the Super Bowl. I think we got to put Kendrick on the list.
Do you go to the Super Bowl? Is that a thing you do?
I've been to it twice. I went to it when my Giants we've won 2 Super Bowls in my adult lifetime. We won some Super Bowls when I was a child, 2 Super Bowls when I was a child. But I don't think I'm going to go this year.
Yeah, we don't know who's playing yet.
No, I mean, we have some ideas. The playoffs have not started.
Right. It's in New Orleans.
Mm-hmm.
No, absolutely Kendrick Lamar. And shout out to Jesse Moore, former White House colleague, who took me to see Kendrick Lamar perform at the Kennedy Center back in the day and introduced me to Kendrick Lamar.
God bless. Because Kendrick came to that Obama meeting, right?
So, yeah. And I think it was that night or the next night. And he's so smart and interesting and such a good dude. And
speaking of culture, right? Has been at it. And speaking of Dr. Dre, when I was talking about before, that's who he was referring to. He was literally like, Kendrick is the only real hip hop artist of this generation that he listens to. That Dre listens to.
I went and saw Kendrick. Another shout out to John Gray for Mr. Morale for that tour. So that would have been last year, probably.
Last year.
Oh God, it was so good. It was by far the best rap show I've ever seen. Just in terms of what he was doing with staging and
lighting.
Like PG Lang is amazing. His creative agency, and just the storytelling that they were doing through that album. I love that album. So it was just Kendrick Lamar, what a legend.
So good.
So interesting.
What about from Hollywood and film? Hollywood TV? Are there any things? I guess we can throw Wicked on there maybe. That's like a phenomenon.
Wicked was like a huge thing, but it's also they just forced that. First of all, it's an extraordinarily made movie. But when you spend like $1 billion on marketing, you're going to have a great time.
People are going to resonate.
Yeah, turns out it'll be successful. I have a good one. It didn't necessarily affect culture yet, but the Oscar shortlists came out a couple days ago, and the film Union in the doc space, the documentary about the Amazon organizing effort.
Amazing.
Film called Union, which I'm going to do a screening here sometime next year. But they are on the short list, which is a huge deal. And of course it can't get distribution because it's so insane. But it will. But that shout out to them for making that. I mean, I don't know. This was the year of like really, Hollywood is still really captured by kind of sequels and existing IP. And I love a bunch of that stuff. Like I'm really excited for the next Mission Impossible. I loved Dune Part 2. I'm excited for Dune 3. I'm not prepared for this conversation.
I love it. Do you put maybe Dune Part 2 is incredible. Maybe put Timmy Chalamet on the list just because he's got his run of number of things.
He's sort of doing that thing though where he's like he's a movie star in the ilk of like the George Clooney's and the Brad Pitts of like he's just not accessible, right? Like he's old school celebrity, which is really cool. Good for him. It probably makes for a saner personal life to like not be on the internet.
But this is why I bring him up. Like he's broken that mold for this Bob Dylan tour, this new movie that he's starring in. And he's making all the rounds. He went on College Football Game Day. I'm not sure if you saw this. Did you see this?
What?
He went on College Football Game Day. He's a huge sports head. He made the panel all made their choices on the games for the week. He was correct on all of his choices.
Wow.
He like beat everyone at the panel. And then he's been going on like sports podcasts.
What a bro.
Timmy's such a bro. And then he went to his own lookalike contest in
That
Washington
I
Square
saw.
Park.
That's hilarious.
It's fucking hilarious. Which now, I think because of his participation,
Everyone's copycatting.
there are now lookalike contests every week. I think Drake just sponsored his own lookalike contest
Of course he did.
in LA. So I'd put Timmy Chalamet up there.
Okay.
Cultural figure of the year.
All right.
If you're going to pick your doc, I want to shout out to two films, Daughters,
Yeah.
and Songs from the Hole, two films about the prison community. Just incredible. I think both. I don't think Songs from the Hole was nominated for an Oscar, but Daughters was.
Nominations aren't out. These are just shortlists.
Shortlist. I'm sorry, shortlist.
Yeah.
But even getting on that shortlist
Huge deal.
is a huge deal.
Yeah.
So shouts to Questlove and Zara and others who produced Daughters.
Questlove's next film, The Sly.
Can't wait.
It's premiering at Sundance, right?
I can't wait.
We'll be there.
I can't wait.
It's going to be so good.
So we've done sports, politics, music. What other pie charts of culture are we missing?
TikTok, I guess.
There were so many TikTok stars at that event last night, and I didn't know any of
I know
them.
Marina knew most of them.
My wife knew all of the TikTok
You knew
stars.
the educator TikTok stars.
True. That is true. I knew a few. I
You knew
won't
the
name check them.
educators. You knew the political ones.
Mm-hmm.
There were a lot of Yossi was talking about this. He's just like, where were like the music reviewers and the book reviewers
Yes.
and the like we just missed so many swaths of type of influencer, which I think was really too bad.
Part of the reason why we lost,
Potentially.
perhaps.
Potentially.
Did we do it? How many did we name? 6? We have 4 more.
Oh my God, bro.
We can do this. Okay. Well, Wicked. I think you got to throw.
Okay, let me start doing some Googling.
Let's throw Ariana Grande on the list, just because. Here's the thing about Ari. Met Ari many years ago at the White House, but this is someone who, God bless her, started out her career doing Disney, became a huge pop R&B star, and this was like she manifested this. Carrie Twigg.
Yeah.
This is her favorite play. She manifested it. She crushed it. So God bless her. I think she's going to be nominated for an Oscar for Best Supporting Actress. I'm going to put Ariana Grande on the list.
Okay. I'm going to Google most watched TV show. 2024.
Was Secession this year?
Monday Night Football, Sunday Night Football, Monday Night Football, Tracker.
Oh, wait, you just put in just for highest rated?
Most watched.
It's just all going to be sports,
Football,
Carrie Twigg.
I know.
It's just all going to be sports.
Well, I know, but I'm trying to... Fallout, Shogun, House of the Dragon, The Last of Us, Grey's Anatomy, 911, The Simpsons, South Park, Percy Jackson, and The Olympians. I wonder about Yellowstone.
Never saw a single minute of Yellowstone, but
It's
I will.
good.
I heard it's
Taylor
great.
Sheridan's a legend. And like if you
I heard
haven't
it's great.
seen Sicaria, this film that he wrote that was directed by Denis Villeneuve, you absolutely should. I actually love Yellowstone.
Of course you do.
I loved
It's
it.
not a surprise to me in the least. Are there white men in this? No, I'm kidding.
Shut up. But it's so true. Yes. And horses, and cowboys, and the mountains, and Montana.
Of course.
And it's like sneaky progressive, which is really interesting.
Wouldn't
But it's
expect that.
interesting. It's like it like contains within it some progressive plot lines and talking points and characters and points of view, but it is all existing within a really quite conservative worldview,
Of course.
which is really interesting. And I think it's just like indicative of the broader kind of nature of culture as well. It's like Succession, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Succession's a really conservative point of like worldview as a show, even if there are moments of it that feel quite liberal,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
I feel like it's both. It's conservative, but it's also kind of like a liberal fever dream as well, of just very smart people talking very fast and very witty, and there's both aspects to secession that I think people can.
But it's fundamentally uncritical about the existence of families like the Roys.
Yeah, but it's
like,
but it's critical
a backdrop
of it. Yes.
Of them as individuals.
Yes.
But as a backdrop, it is not critical at all about like rapacious capitalism.
I don't know. It depends on the way you look at it, because I look at it from the perspective of like all of this is a critique.
Yeah,
right.
Sure.
Like it's all a critique that all of this is such bullshit. Do you know, like someone like Tom could be running a news division?
Sure.
You know. So, but you're right. But it doesn't. It depends on.
I don't
how
know
you
that that's how it lands. You know what I mean? I think that's what you see
that's
in
how
it.
that's what I take away from
right.
it. Yeah.
But I don't know that anyone watched Succession and was like, oh, maybe Elon Musk shouldn't be worth $400 million.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Especially because Logan Roy is such a legend.
Such a legend.
You're
So
just like, this
fucking
guy
great.
is amazing, and I would do anything for his approval.
Yeah, he's so great. Wait, I got another one for the top 10 list.
All right.
In real time.
Okay.
It's coming to me. Pedro Pascal, because
Okay, niche choice.
No, it's not.
Okay, tell
Think
me.
about it. You've got the Mandalorian. He plays the Mandalorian. Simultaneously, Last of Us.
Yeah. Very popular show.
Became an internet phenomenon, just sort of like a meme phenomenon this year.
Real meme presence this year.
Really meme presence this year. And then closes the year with Gladiator 2. That's an incredible... That is for like...
He had a great year.
One human to do all of those things
it's a great
in
year.
1 year. Television and film. It's pretty good.
Yeah, he's got real zaddy
Pretty good.
energy.
And you got like the Star Wars. His toes are in like every bucket, which is a hard thing to do, I think.
Mm-hmm.
He also was fucking hilarious on SNL. Like he's someone who
has on SNL.
He can, to your point, I think the old school star of detached, not partaking in the culture like a Clooney or like a DiCaprio. Pedro is like very actively engaging in the culture.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like,
Who are like the people that you like? Who are celebrities to you?
It's a great question. I think there are so few left.
But I feel like we all have our own little like pet celebrities.
Our version of what
people
a
that we
celebrity
pay
is.
attention to that might not be the most popular people that year, but like who are you paying attention to?
Oh, I thought you were interested in a conversation of like who are celebrities today. Because I think that there's like...
Sure, we can have that conversation too. But I'm curious, like, who is influential to you?
Who is influential to me? I think Ta-Nehisi Coates is influential to me.
Yeah, that's right. You bring him up a lot.
I would put in the top 10. I think the balls on this guy, the courage of this guy who became this sort of progressive beacon. I think that particularly among the white coastal elites, to really enter the fray with this book, it's just ballsy, just fucking great. I really like Zendaya.
Ooh, interesting. I think we should start over. We should do a top 10 lists of like people that we're influenced by, as opposed to like trying to amorphously
imagine the culture.
Yeah.
I mean, that's sort of what we're doing.
Okay. We'll just edit it. We'll edit it. We'll tighten it up.
We'll tighten it up. But that's what I'm picking. Okay. I'm picking people. Right. Oh, yeah, that's a good point. All right. Well, then for you, who are people likewise? Who is someone, either celebrity, author, journalist, human, that you look up to?
Actually not. Okay. I don't know that I would frame it as necessarily looking up to them.
Okay.
Because I have a thing about not looking up to strangers.
I love that. Same. No heroes.
But there are a lot of people who influence how I think about things, and that like when something happens, I will check how they are internalizing it, what their thoughts are.
Yeah.
And whether or not I agree, it just helps synthesize my own thoughts.
Okay.
So I would say for my new one for this year is Taylor Lorenz. Do you know who that is?
Lorenz. God bless.
Yeah.
I know of her.
Yeah.
I am always sort of struck by what hot take she has.
Yeah, I disagree with her a lot.
Yeah.
Not even that I disagree with her. I'm just sort of like, I don't know about that sometimes. I think she can be narrow in her kind of perception, her analysis of like the TikTok ban or whatever. But she's always really interesting.
She
and
is.
I think she's incredibly smart and she's a really good writer. And so her post 2024 election autopsy and analysis was super interesting and has really shaped my thinking. But I very much, so she's just someone I go to. She's someone who like User Mag, what she does on Substack, her podcast, sort of what she does in the broader journalism world. And I think she's really spicy and I like that, you know?
What was her? Have we talked about her post?
We have.
Election
we
analysis?
agree with her,
We
but
agree
she
with
was
her.
basically just like, this was the election of the influencer.
Yeah.
And you guys got your asses kicked.
Yeah.
Democrats.
Yeah, you're correct.
Yeah, 100%. Yes. So she is someone who I'm always really curious to hear what her perspective is.
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily because I agree and it validates mine, but because I often would not have thought about it in that particular way. And she's obviously engaged in digital culture in a way that I'm just not.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, yours, Ta-Nehisi. Taylor. Ta-Nehisi's such a good one. I mean, his thing. I mean, what a clarion, incisive mind. Who else you got?
I'd throw Jon Stewart on the list just because coming out of retirement, I mean, it clearly didn't lead to a different election result by any means. The Daily Show was kind of lost without Trevor. I think I also loved The Daily Show. I grew up on The Daily Show. I think most people that work at the White House, the Obama White House, say two things. They're like, I grew up watching The West Wing, and I grew up watching The Daily Show. Like these were the two guiding cultural, like Jedis in my life. Was Jon Stewart and Aaron Sorkin, or President Jed Bartlett. Carrie Twigg is also a big West Wing fan. We were talking West Wing.
Yeah, huge West Wing.
We were talking West Wing last night. Stewart was just fucking great. I mean, it was weird. It was almost as if he was just like in a like. What are they called? Hydroponic chambers. Like he just
hyperbaric.
Yeah, he was just like in ice. He was like in what Han Solo
chamber.
What is Han Solo in?
Yeah.
In
he was in hyper freeze or deep freeze or
deep
something.
freeze.
Yeah. Whatever.
I mean, Stewart obviously looks older, but like has not lost a single fucking step. Just the best media and political critique week to week. And I think The Daily Show as a whole is humming. Like, I think that Ronnie...
It gave it an anchor.
It gave it a really... Yeah,
taking up once a week gave it a center of gravity to, like, figure out. Yeah.
And it reminded me of how much I missed The Daily Show. As much as wow, we're really going to disagree here with Trevor. I love Trevor Noah. I think Trevor Noah is an immense talent. Was not a huge fan of The Daily Show when Trevor
I've never seen it.
Oh, wow. Okay.
No, my affection for Trevor Noah is personal.
Has nothing to do with The Daily Show.
Nothing to do with his like talent on camera.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I've never watched The Daily Show. Even back in the day in the Jon Stewart, I just... I've been working professionally in politics since I was 19.
Sure.
And it was sort of one of those things of The Daily Show and would always rip apart Democrats, even as it was supporting them.
Yeah.
And I was sort of just like, I do this all day long for work.
Yeah.
I actually, in my entertainment hours, don't want to come home and be called an idiot. And like, I also think for the idealist in me as a young person, it was really hard to... Like, I didn't know what to do with the contradictions that I was interacting with already, right?
Yeah.
And they weren't funny to me. Like, it actually wasn't. The way that Democrats are disappointing and sanctimonious and hypocritical, like, it wasn't funny.
You were defensive of it.
I was, like, a little bit just, like, I actually am not ready to, like, laugh about that because it's so disappointing.
Interesting.
And so I just sort of stayed away from The Daily Show. And I think when did Trevor take over? I think I was in the White House. And
yeah,
same
it's
rules.
around that time, like 2000. We could probably Google it. It was like 2010, 2011.
Yeah. And my same rules applied. It was just sort of like, I do this all day long. I don't want to go home and then watch what you talk about, the thing that I just did all day and I just talked about all day. I want, other total stuff that's totally different or feels totally removed. I want contrast in my entertainment.
Interesting.
So I don't know that I've ever seen a full episode of The Daily Show. It's to this day.
It's so interesting to me, Twig, because, well, I guess maybe this is the reason why I love The Daily Show so much, because so much of that work that Stewart was doing that we lost under the Trevor administration, the Trevor No administration, was a critique. You're putting a critique on like the left, but it was more of a critique on Fox News. Like a lot of it was holding accountable the bullshit of right-wing media, which, as we discussed before, was still a force. It was different.
Sure.
Talk radio and Fox News, which was a relatively new phenomenon too when Fox News became Fox News, because they launched and they're like, we're fair and balanced, right? Like we're going to bring...
No, it's not surprising I don't have the correct analysis of The Daily Show. I've never watched it.
No. I'm just saying...
No, but that makes so much sense.
But you're not interested, but you don't consume that either.
Exactly.
So it's
done nothing for me.
Exactly. So if you don't consume either, then the critique of the thing that you don't watch is not as compelling.
Right.
But for someone who hated Fox News, because my parents would watch it, the Daily Show became they were doing the real work that, like when we were saying like the Democrats are not doing this work, like it was almost like the Daily Show was the rapid response mechanism for right-wing misinformation. And when Trevor Noah took over, he was not interested in that at all.
What did he do?
Well, Trevor, I mean, he's not American, right? I mean, he's now an American, but he...
Is he? Has he become a citizen?
I think... I don't know. Actually, yeah, that's a big leap. Maybe his dual citizenship. My sense of Trevor, and he would even say it, is that he sort of viewed American politics like National Geographic, where everything just looked stupid to him. So he was not as interested as John in a way, like beating back the misinformation of Fox News. He was more interested in like all of it being silly. And so that, to your point, maybe that's why I didn't like it as well, because I think that there was at times it felt very like false equivalency.
Oh, interesting.
You know what I mean?
Like I was really happy for him. I was happy that he had that job. I was happy that someone had taken over. I just didn't participate in the Daily Show, really. Yeah. I never disliked it. I was never against it.
Also, with that said, Trevor was great. He just was not as funny. Like
terrible.
He just wasn't as good.
His stand-up is amazing.
Sam's great. Sam's great.
I don't need to defend his honor, but you know what I mean.
I mean, you can. Another person on the list, I think we got to say it out loud, Sidney Sweeney, I think goes on the list.
What? Well, your personal list. Yeah,
your
personal influencer list. Come on. Give me a fucking break.
Oh, she's not even my style. She's not even my style. I just mean as like a cultural force. I felt like Sidney Sweeney was a like return to kind of like old school blonde, like an old school
natural
archetype.
Larges.
Old school American archetype. You know?
Yeah, good for her.
Yeah,
sure.
I feel like she goes on the list.
I don't know. I can't as much kind of crowing about dudes as I've done on this podcast, but sure. Yeah, good for her. Seems like she had a great year. Did you watch? No, she's not in that. What am I thinking about?
I don't think I've seen a single thing that Sidney
She's
Sweeney's
in Euphoria, and then I was about to say, did you see Twisters? But Glenn Powell's in that. She did like some sort of Of course, the dude, the male version of Sidney Sweeney, Glenn Powell.
Oh, that's true. Glenn Powell and Sidney Sweeney should be like together.
Well, they are in a rom-com.
Yeah.
And they did this whole hilarious press tour where they basically pretended like, are they both cheating on their spouse? Or their whatever. But yeah, I can only name Glenn Powell's work. Tricky. Okay, I had one. Did you do your Zendaya?
Love Zendaya.
I love Zendaya. I love her. She's great.
I'm friends with Zendaya's mom, Claire.
Oh.
Who's incredible. I don't think she watches this podcast, but Claire is an incredible human. And
you really have the celeb mom circuit.
Claire's so cool. The coolest thing about Claire is how sweet she is, like how proud of a mom she is. She'll just like whenever Zendaya is like on a red carpet or like wins an award, she'll like post to her stories. Like it's just very heartwarming.
It's very sweet. Did you watch Challengers?
Did not see Challengers.
It's so good.
Did not see Challengers.
Amazing. Such a good film.
I was going to watch it on a plane. Because, it's like you're flipping through and then I'm like, I don't know that this is a plane appropriate movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because then you click it and then people are like, oh, you're watching like a threesome.
Yeah, but it's not like they're Eiffel Towering. I mean, you know what I mean? Like it's like it evolves before it's not. It's hot, but it's not
porn.
It wouldn't be on the plane otherwise.
Good point.
Like they're not going to put you in that position.
Good point. I know.
If there was porn on plane, do you know how many people would actually watch it? So many people.
You think people were like, I don't care. I am going to watch this. People are going to watch this with me. People are just going to put porn on.
You think that we live in some sort of shame-based society anymore?
I guess you're right.
Every plane would at least have one dude who's like, I don't care. They put it on here. I'm not going to watch it.
You're totally right.
Even if for no other reason than to get the attention of people.
It's a very good point.
Who don't want him to do it. You know what I mean? There's a contrarian in every group.
It's so true. Also, there's so many drunk people on airplanes as well.
Yeah.
Like that's another piece. Whenever I see one of those videos, there's so many videos of drunk people on airplanes getting in fights with people.
Are there really?
Yeah. Well, every time you like, don't you see where like they throw out the person on the plane? It's always people who are completely shit-faced because they've been sitting at the airport bar for like 3 hours and they're just getting on the plane like ready to fight someone.
I was in Vegas a couple weeks ago and I took a like 11 p.m. flight.
Yeah.
And I had never been on a plane where they're like, buckle your seatbelt. Also, if you are drunk, like we will refuse to fly you.
Yes.
I've never, like the number of PA announcements that had to do with like, if you are drunk, we will not let you on the plane. Right. If you are drunk, we will take you off of this plane.
Throw you off the plane. Yeah.
Just like, well, I mean, know your audience. I assume they know of what they speak.
It's coming from experience.
Yeah.
What about, we're rounding out our top 10. Should there be like a favorite meme of the year? What about like Moodang?
Moodang was great.
What about Haktua Girl?
She nailed it.
What were some other great memeable moments? I feel like you put Moodang on there. That was a thing.
Moodang was great. I got a lot of joy out of Moodang because I think that was really reaching its apex when I was in Philly.
Oh yeah,
and just like desperate for something
for any funny content,
any kind of dopamine.
It's like Moodang is saving me. I think we nailed it. I think that Moodang maybe is at number 10.
Yeah. We can't count, but fine. I had something, but I forgot about it in our extended discussion of The Daily Show. Well, I'm glad. This is a good one.
Okay.
Malcolm Gladwell is someone who I really
love. Malcolm Gladwell
would put on my list for this year because he's doing something that we often don't see public figures do very often, which is go back and critique their initial thinking.
Ooh.
Right. So his book that came out this year, I think it was The Tipping Point 2 or The Tipping Point Revisited or something like that. But it goes back into a lot of the work that he did in his first book, The Tipping Point, which is around like broken glass policing and all of this stuff. And he's like, am I right about any of this stuff?
Very controversial. Yeah.
And if I'm not right, like what have I wrought in the world? And to have someone who has been so influential in the way that public policy has unfolded and that elected officials think and like has been such a powerful force and sort of intellectual, like popular intellectualism in America, to then actually close to be like, well, was I right? Like,
I love that.
And if not, I will revise my thinking and I will update my opinions, and modeling that in a way that just no one else does anytime in culture. And we have not given a ton of permission to leaders, whether they're corporate leaders or they are elected leaders, to be like, I was wrong and I'm sorry. And here's how we fix it. And here's what to do. And it should be expected.
So good. Yeah.
That we learn from mistakes, that we review our choices. Like, think about the 94 crime bill, right?
Yeah.
Which people were desperate for at the time. And
for political reasons.
Reasons, but also like it was the height of the crack. Like it was also just like people were having a hard time, you know?
Yeah.
If you're someone and your car keeps getting broken into and it costs you and you can't afford $400 just on a whim, like it's awful to live in places where you were constantly subjected to crime and constantly. It's not great, right? So like then, but remember in 2016 when that was coming up, both for Hillary and for Biden.
And for Kamala.
And it's like pulling teeth to get people to have an honest conversation about choices that they made.
Yes.
Right. And Bill Clinton was so defensive. And it's sort of, I think Malcolm Gladwell going back to one of the most popular books in American history and saying, I don't know if any of this was right, let's find out.
Yes.
Is like a lesson that we should take into every other realm, and like an expectation we should have for leaders of every kind, of just like, I did the best I could at the time. I can understand that. But let's update our thinking. Let's update our opinions.
I love that
and not
so
be afraid
much.
Of that.
I love that so much. I mean, I'm reminded, you know who else does that is R.I.P. Roger Ebert would do that. Where,
interesting,
because think about how many movie reviews he's written.
Sure.
Think about how many films he's seen.
Yeah.
And so he's gonna fuck some up.
Yeah.
Or he's gonna watch a film and just like on the first viewing just didn't get it, or maybe was in a bad mood when he saw it, or whatever. Like maybe just something was happening in his life, he just didn't understand the point of it, and he would revisit old films. Like he would. And typically it was like correcting the record. It would be like, I gave this film 2 stars, but actually this is an incredible work of art. And I missed it. And this was what I missed when I first saw the film.
Right.
We don't do that level of sort of grace and humility and just like, it's a really great way of putting it. Like Malcolm Gladwell, that is one of the most popular books of all time. Most people would just be like, oh no, that's right. And just do like earmuffs for anyone who would question whether or not those ideas are the right ideas, Totally.
And I'm obsessed with his podcast. I love his podcast. And even just like, he has such a sense of humor about it. He's like, I don't know. Like, who knows? Like let's find out. But doesn't personalize being wrong in public,
right?
In a way that I think is really brilliant, and like a lot of people could stand to emulate.
It's such a great point, and this is the other part. And I know we're continuing well past our time, but where we mess up, because we're gonna keep coming back to the endeavor or the experiment of Twigg and Jenkins and why we started this whole thing, is people will give you so much more grace when they have a real relationship with you, when they've seen.
Totally.
Do you know what I mean? When you're not, when you show them that you're not perfect. And we keep bringing up Rogan as an example, but that's the thing with Rogan. Like, he says dumb shit all of the time, but he's the first person to say, like, I say dumb shit. Yeah. I don't know what I'm talking about.
Totally.
And so people are willing to ride with him for a while. They're willing to ride with him even during all this Trump stuff. They're willing to be like, well, maybe it's a phase. Like, who knows?
Yeah.
But it's Rogan. He's a guy. He's just trying to figure out life. And I think that the other thing that we do as Democrats is we're so precious with always being right all the time.
Yeah.
And we're never open to your point, revisiting ideas, revisiting thoughts, you know? And something that Kamala should do, she should, when we were talking about the whole, you know, she should have done more and they hid her and yada, yada, yada. Like, if I were advising her right now, she should go on podcasts now.
I know. I would love to hear.
She should go on podcasts now. It shouldn't. Don't let your shitty staff defend. Excuse me. They're not all shitty, but do you know what I mean? Like, what I mean to say is, like, don't let them be the final word on you.
I know that's the way to say it. Yeah.
Don't let them be the final word on you.
Yes. That's such a good point. It would be amazing. And I think, to your point, she's so young. She's going to have a future.
Young.
And like, give people an opportunity to get to know you now.
Yeah.
And
By the way, Donald Trump lost. Donald Trump lost.
Yeah.
Dude got beat.
Yeah.
Joe Biden smoked Donald Trump.
Yeah.
You would not even imagine a world where Donald Trump lost because he just pretended like he didn't lose. He just like kept going. He was like, I'm running again.
Yeah.
And here's my gold fucking shoes. You know, like, he didn't hide. We Democrats hide. We hide all the time. And the world that we live in today, it's like, what do they say? Like, tweet through it. Like this idea of like, you can't hide. Yeah. If you hide, you're irrelevant. If you hide, people forget about you.
Right.
There's this incredible meme that I saw a couple days ago. I was going to send it to you, where it literally was just like, remember when Kamala Harris was a thing? Wild. And I'm like, oh my God. But that is she's been gone from the culture for a month.
And we've already.
But it feels like an eternity, you know?
Yeah.
And so I would advise her and her team. And I would also say this to Joe Biden. Joe should do this too. He still has his own legacy, right, to discuss. And it shouldn't only be, as much as I love him going to the Department of Labor and giving a beautiful speech,
right?
As much as I love him, he's doing all the right things right now, as he should. But it's crazy that we kept putting them under the pressure cooker of like, you're running for office, you have to go on podcasts. It's like, you're still president of the United States today.
Yeah.
You could still go on any podcast
you want.
It's not just for campaigns.
Yeah.
So Joe Biden, come on the Twigg and Jenkins podcast. Your former senior advisor is here. You know, we've got a warm seat for you. You guys, you and Twigg can catch up on all of your shenanigans in Scranton, in Union Halls, in fucking Ohio.
Yeah,
you know, like, you guys can like.
But Kamala Harris too. I think you're right. I think because no matter, all the scuttlebutt in the press about her right now is that she's figuring out what she wants to do next.
Yeah.
And does she run for governor of California? Does she just go straight into the primary process for 2028? And I think no matter what, building her kind of notoriety and her base of people who know her and feel like they've gotten to experience her in long form ways is really important. And like that work, no matter what she wants to do next, it will all be built on her ability to be known by people.
And I still feel like we never really got to know her. I think we got to know, you and I kept being like, oh, this was great. Like, especially during the convention, I think there were moments where we were like, oh, wow, she's like kind of like growing up before our very eyes, right?
Yeah.
Like
coming into her own.
Into her own. But I still think to this day, it's part of the reason why, unfortunately, she lost. I think it's also just the way the patriarchy works, where I think you could just tell she is just very protective because of the way that culture, praise or attacks women. But she's just always afraid to say the wrong thing, always kind of sticking to talking points or sticking to, not offending this person or that person or this group. And she just let her hair down right now.
Well, that's the thing. I think what you're actually bringing up are two separate things. One is having a conversation, seeing her be in conversation at a time when she doesn't have an agenda to push.
Exactly.
Whether that's like
Yes.
a campaign to represent or
Yep.
a bill to support and pass as vice president or whatever it is. Just like when you got no ask,
Yes.
you have no ask, seeing her in conversation when she has absolutely no ask to make. I think that is one thing that's super important and valuable, and she should do a ton of.
Agreed.
And then also around like the care and consideration, like she's a serious person.
Yeah.
And I think Democrats, the instinct to be so methodical and so measured comes from the right place, which is like they're serious people who understand that words are really powerful tools. Like words have power. They're the things we speak often turn, like we speak into existence.
Yep.
Barack Obama at the White House Correspondents' Dinner naming President Trump. But the things we speak matter. And so we want to take that seriously and do right by that. And I think she's someone, and this is true for so many people, who like care very deeply about how other people are, right? And what their lives they get to lead. The problem is we're now at a space where people have been so advertised to that actually they seek care, or they consider it far more caring if you're just a little bit looser and freer with it. And it's like...
and human.
And so I don't think they're asking for perfection. And I think that you can be a flawed, and to your point, be really flawed, be really human, don't let, good be the enemy of perfect, be the enemy of good. And that actually makes people trust you more and gives you more power to actually do the work that you care about, which is making people's lives better.
100%.
Yeah.
If Donald Trump has taught anyone anything, it's that I think we as humans actually, I mean, at this point, based off of these election results, prefer flawed people. Yeah. Prefer like human people that make mistakes.
Yeah.
And because it just shows, again, people that are waking up every day, trying to do the best that they can, know that they have faults and they have mistakes. And so, yeah, I mean, the challenge with it, though, because now I'm like thinking of Kamala's team, right? And like, why wouldn't she do this? Well, of course, because there is an industrial complex and an ecosystem that says, don't do anything right now. Write a book, write a telltale, your story, your memoir. Wait for that book to come out.
If she's going to do that, it better be juicy.
No, that's what I mean. Then wait. Then you do your tour. So then you could you get a huge book deal. You sell, and that's the traditional way of doing this stuff, right? But I think, again, and I would give this advice to people like President Obama as well. I think that we are just leaving our leaders. If you're comparing, it's like the reps and the volume of Trump. Just think about the volume of Trump every day, every tweet, every show, every trading card he's selling, just all of that Trump media every day. And you were to count up all of the Democratic leaders.
I know.
The scale is not even close.
I know.
And we're just talking about one person. I know. Like, that's another part. Like, we have to hold our Democratic leaders accountable as well.
Yeah.
Like, it's not just all on Kamala Harris's shoulders. President Obama should have gone on Rogan. Yeah. President Obama should have gone on Bill Simmons. President Obama should have, he has a production company. He should have built some shit over there. Why doesn't Higher Ground have a podcast company?
Well,
do you know what I mean?
I think they did.
Do? Oh, yeah, that's right. He did do a podcast with Bruce Springsteen. But, we just need more volume.
We need more.
Well,
and I think so much of, and maybe this isn't true, and maybe I will have to, in a Gladwellian way, amend my opinion.
Yeah, I was gonna say, do we go back from our old episodes and revisit some of the things that we said?
Just let's just offer a Joe Rogan-esque preface to this to all that is retroactive and proactive. We are not prepared. None of this could be right.
We're just saying some shit. It's true. It's so true.
We're experts and also not.
Yeah,
so
totally.
Who knows? But my hot take on Higher Ground is one of the things that I think got really cloudy with the Obamas in the post-Trump moment is probably just like as humans having to recover from 8 years in the White House and like figuring out what you're going to do, how you're going to feel sleeping, getting the cortisol down, all of those things.
Also, 8 years of the White House to Trump.
To then Trump. Like
that's
that
also
swing
a
is
shock
brutal
to the system. Yeah.
So I think there's like the human element.
Yeah.
I also think Joe Biden then gets elected. You think Trump is maybe going to be gone forever. And higher ground to me, they've made really incredible things. They've done some great acquisitions, but it very much feels like a legacy project. Like, I don't think that Barack Obama has been thinking about wielding his media empire immediately as in any way in relationship to what's been happening on the right. Like, I don't think he thinks about it as like, I'm going to build this in order to counteract some of what's happening out there. Otherwise, I think we would have seen them make really different content choices. I think they're very much just sort of like, let's do some fun stuff that allows us to express our creativity, that lifts up stories and artists that we think are important and narratives that we think are important. But I don't know that he's been thinking about it in sort of or they have been thinking about themselves as part of as being in conflict or in an adversarial relationship with the media of the right. I think it's been more of a legacy project. And that's an okay call to make. I think one of the things we're saying is like, you make the best decisions you can at the time.
Yeah.
I think looking backwards, it would have been amazing if he'd spent the last
It would have been
8 years
so needed.
Doing everything that we are now going to have to do by way of building a content ecosystem and a narrative ecosystem that actually supports and reinforces progressive values.
Agreed. I think the Bruce Springsteen, I mean, there were choices he was making that you could tell he's a very smart dude, right?
Oh, for sure. I mean,
so he saw
legendarily.
the writing on the wall of, losing white working class voters. He saw the numbers around like everything that sort of came true here. You could sort of plot a lot of their documentary film choices.
Totally.
And a lot of the stuff was like, okay,
American Factory.
exactly.
Absolutely.
Like but you're right. But it wasn't in the same level of like rapid response. We need to build an ecosystem.
Mm-mm.
I think it was much more, even from just their own, like getting their feet underneath them. What are the stories we want to tell? If you sort of see what they were trying to do, and these are award-winning films, so I don't want to take anything away from them, but these were not pop culture moments, right? These were award-winning, I mean, it's great. Like, we can all learn from these things, but, did nothing to protect our country from Donald Trump winning again, for instance, And I think that's sort of like, I love the way you put that. Like, Barack Obama's always had the long-term view on everything that he's done.
It's just how his mind works.
That's just the way his mind works.
Yeah.
And it's so compelling and interesting now, like looking back, where his favorite thing to do he would have these like salons with historians.
Yeah.
Because
and authors.
He's so intrigued he understood that moment that he was living in, and he wanted to know and understand how was history going to view him.
Yeah.
I think the one thing that's interesting now, though, that is got to be tough for him to reckon with is that there is no Donald Trump without Barack Obama. I think that they are now inextricably linked.
Yeah.
And I think that there has been, from my opinion, at least in the way that everything is structured, with the Obama Foundation being a 501c3 nonpartisan organization. I think, to your point, the Obama Foundation, Higher Ground being this very kind of long-term thing. You have our best communicator, perhaps ever. And you have Donald Trump, who's out there just spewing voluminous hate and garbage every single day. And it's like, we've got this incredible quarterback, one of the best quarterbacks that have ever played the game, and he's just retired. Do you know what I mean? He's just like, I don't play anymore.
Yeah.
I don't play anymore. I'm worried. What I'm doing is I'm like figuring out my Hall of Fame. I'm figuring out all this other stuff. I don't play anymore. But the reality is, like, he could still throw the ball.
Yeah.
He could still throw the ball. And, you know, we shouldn't. I mean, again, people have been asking Obama to be more engaged since he left office. So I'm not making that argument right now that he should be more engaged now. But when someone that good, right, like when we talk about what happened to the Democratic Party, it's like we lost our quarterback.
Yeah.
He was just like, peace.
Yeah. And I mean, both the Obamas did a lot for the campaign. They did a lot for Kamala. Sure. You know, I think
Did they do a lot, though?
Well, they spoke at the convention. They both did fundraisers. They both did rallies. I mean, Michelle Obama is probably the MVP of
She's the best.
The 107 days.
I love her so much.
Between the convention and
True. Okay.
You know, I mean,
sorry, no more Obama.
She might actually be the quarterback of which you speak, because Barack Obama had probably created one of the, maybe not the worst, but the second worst news cycle for Democratic messaging of the 107 days.
That was tough. That was a tough day.
That was a tough day.
That was a tough day.
It was a tough day. A rare miss. A rare miss from a talented man. But Michelle is who gave the framework for so much of what was actually unfolding. And like, I am haunted by that Detroit speech she gave, which was like, do not let your, like, do her speech to men, which is like, we will be the collateral damage of your rage. And that is so profound, and like, to me, will go down as one of the greatest political speeches of all time. And
but also
has not gotten enough attention and needs to be revisited and needs to be explored in many, many cultural ways, because we're about to watch it unfold, right? We are about to watch the real life implications of that unfold in however many days there are between now and January 20th. And so I think
about
that's
speaking that into existence, though, too.
Right. And so I think, did Ben Wickler say it, or did Martin O'Malley said? One of them said that we need to be in a wartime posture, right? And I guess the point that I'm making around Barack Obama and Higher Ground in particular is like, they did not build that entity as a wartime posture. And I don't know that we even understood how like, the right has been waging war against us, and I'm not sure we knew that was happening.
You and I knew. Yeah,
but even I didn't know the scale. This year has really shown me the scale of what, like, they were like, real G's move in silence. They were moving in silence about so much of the infrastructure that they've built. Like, yes, we've known they're investing. I don't think we understood the scale, and I don't know that we understood that, like, the precision and like deathly efficiency of it once they turned it on.
I do think that for people whose jobs it is to track that, meaning the Democratic Party, but also meaning like all these digital firms in town. Like, by the way, I remember, because Facebook started releasing their top viewed videos every week. It was right-wing propaganda every fucking week. So it's not as if this data didn't exist. Like, this was out here. And so,
which is part of what I find so enraging about this moment that we're in. It wasn't a secret. Like, it's all been out in the open, but I still don't think that like the top tier, whether it's the Obamas or like people who are much more adjacent to politics over the course of the last several years, like myself,
right?
I really didn't understand the scale.
Thick of it, though. But I was like, I mean, I guess that's the piece that, you know, will keep me up at night. Yeah, yeah. It's the piece that'll keep me up at night, because I think this didn't come out of thin air.
No.
And the part that I'm excited by with Twigg and Jenkins is, you know, we're just now settling in here in my head for like the long haul. Because I think we were starting, it was fun. Like, you know, we're making some shit and we're doing this stuff. But like now to get like, now to actually like think through, like, who do we want on this podcast? You know, we've been building community, just you and I, but it's like, we haven't even started to think about who are the kinds of people who have communities of their own, right? Who would love to just fucking shoot the shit with us, you know? And, and, you know, as much as I just gave the Obamas shit, you're right. They did a lot, and we can't just keep we can't just keep being like, you guys gotta do it all.
Well, this is this debate that you and I keep having, which is a little bit off camera, which is like, you can't make people do things they don't want to do.
Yeah.
And so I don't know.
Yeah.
I think that there is a very legitimate case to be made. If I'm Michelle Obama or Barack Obama, just like, I tried. I tried. I've done everything I can. Like, other people have to get in. It can't just be me. You can't just keep putting this on my back.
Yeah.
And so I don't know that it is, you know, I think that there's so many people in culture that you look at and who you see their influence and their effect, and you want them to take up this cause, but you can't make, you know,
you can't make them
do it. You can't bring the mountain to Muhammad, right? People have to self-select into it. And there are people with talent and interest who have self-selected into it. And it's like, how do we further them and help them build and do their own thing?
So true.
But also, I think the role that, you know, that the Obamas can play is like signaling other people's attention. You know, I do remember Valerie used to always use this analogy in the White House of like President Obama's attention is like a lighthouse. And it's like, most of the time it won't be on you, but when it is, it burns bright, and like, you better be ready.
You better be ready.
And it's like, he still has that power. They both do. And Higher Ground does. And so much of the work that they do still has this power to focus at least some massive portion of the public's attention on a particular cause or person or issue or thing. And watching them wield that to the longer term effect of building culture that works better for the things that they value, I think could be a really interesting way for them to show up.
You and I talked about before we were like putting together like a fantasy team or a fantasy football team. And we had said that we did identify everything we just talked about with Yossi, this kind of like media ecosystem that needs to happen. And we also did say Obama should be, because that is something that, I think, here's what I will say. I do think that President Obama is still our best. And I do think that we're going to need him a lot more in these 4 years.
Yeah.
I don't think that this is a time, because what I do worry about is the longer you are away, just the less people, particularly Gen Z, even know you. Yeah. And there's no reason why he can't walk and chew gum. There's no reason why
he can't be on David Geffen's yacht.
Exactly. No, I'm serious. There's no reason why he can't do the foundation, do that long-term building work, do Higher Ground, award-winning documentaries, and also go on Rogan.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or also go on, I mean, the thing is, like, he broke the mold. He went on Bill Simmons. He went on Mark Maron.
Right.
He went on Between Two Ferns.
Right.
There's no reason why he still can't do those things every now and again. I'm not saying he needs to be out there like Trump every day, but I just think we need.
And to his credit, I think for a long time he was wary of sucking up oxygen.
Yeah.
And he's
good point.
Acutely aware of the way that the culture responds to him and the way that he draws time, attention, and resources. But in this era where the field is really open, he doesn't have this ask that he's making. He doesn't need people to vote for him. He doesn't need people to support a piece of legislation. He doesn't need to necessarily galvanize the public's attention towards a specific outcome. Hopefully that makes it more inviting and makes it more palatable to him or strategic for him to do some of those things.
Speaking of Malcolm Gladwell, this will be a really interesting thing of revisiting, because if there is a moment where President Obama can come in and do a solid for the Democratic Party and for the future chair, whether it's Wickler, whether it's Ken, whoever it is, Martin, Nate, for President Obama to be out there and to be involved in that endeavor of the branding of the Democratic Party, because I don't know how he feels about the OFA experiment in retrospect. Like, I wonder if he would be honest, like if Barack was here, I wonder if we were to ask, would you do that again? Would you put all of that youth and all that energy outside of the Democratic Party?
Well, I mean, because here's the thing. You offered a defense from a friend about why they did it that way. Mm-hmm. I think the quiet part is that, and I don't think that they were wrong, is that Barack Obama has always had a stronger brand than the Democratic Party has.
100%.
And so you had all this time, you had all these organizers, you had all these first-time participants, and you're going to go and give them somewhere that you don't trust to handle them responsibly or to reflect your brand with the integrity that you can yourself. That's why they did it. They didn't do it because it was like, oh no, we're organized by issue. It's like, give me a break. You did it because you didn't trust the Democratic Party and because the brand wasn't as strong, and it's a big ask. To make people who support Barack Obama to then try and transfer that to the Democratic Party. And I don't necessarily disagree with that. I think the consequences of that decision, though, have been devastating for the Democratic Party.
Agreed.
But I get why they made that decision. I'm not saying I would have made a fundamentally different one. I just think now looking back, it's really the beginning of the end for like the machine in so many ways.
Because like imagine if we could go back in the Wayback Machine, right? The first thing we would do is tell Barack Obama not to make fun of Donald Trump at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. That's the first thing we would do. But the second thing we might have done, even before that, is not create OFA.
Yeah.
Have the really great brand, right? That Obama brand. But that Obama brand and the Democratic brand become one.
Right. And do some work to like.
Exactly. So you bring the Obama logo to the Democratic Party.
Yeah. Bring the Democrats up to the Obama standard.
Yes. You infuse everything Yossi was doing with Shep and all that. You infuse that all into the Democratic Party. This is what the Democratic Party stands for.
Yeah.
Because to your point, it should be a long-term thing.
Yeah.
It should be, let's use this moment to build something that's going to last a generation. Because the Democratic Party, I mean, if we think about the actual history of the Democratic Party and Andrew Jackson, it's not a great brand.
Spotty.
It's a really sordid, ugly history. So let Barack Obama chart this new course. And, you know, again, it can't work now because Obama's brand is not relevant, but that would have been cool. Like if you had, do you remember all that Obama merch? If it was like,
I still have so much of it somewhere.
But if that was Democratic Party merch, you know, that could have been, oh well.
I mean, cool. There were like fights in the street for stuff.
I still have like my old school Obama 08 gear. It's so good.
Yeah.
It's so good. This was like the longest best pod, 4 hours.
Yep. We're 4 hours of podcasting today. We'll be back. We're going to do some counter programming for the inauguration.
True. We're going to do,
we have more DNC chair
Did you like
interviews to roll out.
Invite.
I really like it, but I don't think we should brand it as a holiday party.
It's not.
I think we should make fun of it. We should make it like we should do an inauguration joke.
Oh. Okay.
You know? Because it's the 18th versus... It's like holiday parties are sort of over, and obviously the thing that's going to be happening is like join all your best MAGA friends in DC.
No, I know. That's the reason why I chose for it not to be inauguration specific.
I think it makes it seem
because we're gonna send it this week, right? So it's also kind of still in season. But you're right. We can make it.
It should be
inauguration specific.
It should be inauguration counter programming of like get together with all your favorite
Carrie and I are talking
podcasters.
About our very cool dinner we're going to host in Washington, D.C. If anyone wants to come, hit us up at our Gmail. What is our Gmail again?
Twigg and Jenkins podcast at gmail.com. Or just DM one of us.
Oh, man, we did it, team.
This one's going to need some editing. This one's going to need some tightening
I was going to say, this might be the last episode of the year. Because
we'll talk about the content calendar.
Because we still got Martin O'Malley coming out. We still got Nate Snyder coming out. Just recorded with Yossi. Yeah. And there's not many days left in the year. So
Ken Martin has not been able to make time for us yet, despite expressing interest. So
if Ken Martin doesn't come on the Twigg and Jenkins podcast, clearly he's going to be put last on our ranking list.
Obviously. I mean, it's just like you're sort of. Have you read any of the post 2024 analysis? Maybe I don't. He might have done other podcasts, but like
I don't think so. Also, again, it speaks to this is the reason why I think these DNC chair races are stupid. I'm sorry. What are we doing here?
In what way?
We're talking about like building a Democratic Party for the country.
You're talking about the manner in which the DNC chairs get elected is stupid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like shit in, shit out. If the process is shit, then the results are going to be insidery, doesn't know how to speak to the public, afraid to go on a podcast. Like, how do we expect that person to then run the Democratic Party? You know, you're just going to reward someone who is going to keep things exactly the same. You know what I mean? Anyway, my rant, final rant of the day.
All right. And with that,
Ken, come on the podcast.
Thanks for listening.
We love you guys. Twigg and Jenkins. Peace.
Bye.